can't hold my own attention for more than a few thousand words. I get lost.
Okay.
Working on Lucy, which will end up being a full-length thing, I'm having to run a mini chart of what I covered in each chapter so we don't end up repeating things. But it's also a lot of fun because I think of something, and like last night, honestly, I went to bed and I made myself a little note to write a piece called How Stephanie Germanotta Helped Me Like Gaga.
I'm sorry? Could you
Lady Gaga.
Translate that?
Well, Stephanie Germanotta is Lady Gaga's real name.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I didn't know. All right.
So it was Stephanie in A Star Is Born, and then some interviews I saw, and she's turned out to be a different person, and Tony Bennett picking her up helped a lot because I admire Tony. I don't understand Lady Gaga per se, but I understand Lady Gaga with Tony Bennett. And then I really got it when she was very much herself in the movie. And I'm starting to really like her as a human being, and that's pretty cool. So it's something to write about.
I remember her first song there, but I think it was Poker Face. That was a big hit. I really liked that at the time. I remember that.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's not what you like.
Okay, no problem. It's not. No, it's I don't like anything she wrote other than I like her Bennett stuff, and I like what they did in Star Is Born. I love Shallow. I think that's beautiful. And the other songs in that movie are stunning. Those I like.
And she wrote that song, did she? Shallow?
Co-wrote. Yes, but she was a big writer, and they won a Grammy for that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Lucy then. You got off that a bit, but that's okay. Yeah. How about Lucy
that's okay.
and the Tribe?
Yeah. So Lucy started out, it took a long time. Like I kind of wanted to tell my story, but I didn't want to do just me. And then I knew her, and we talked about it, and I came up with, give or take 8,000 words, sort of an essay that's long enough to put up as a short. I have a woman who I really admire for different reasons. She did something really nice for me, and then I didn't know who it was, and then she told me later that was her. And I've come to really trust her. And I sent her that 8,000 words, and I said, I just said, I wrote this thing. Would you like to read it? Yeah. So she came back a couple of days later in a private message. She said, I read it. I critiqued it. You want to see that? Yes or no? Oh, my God, yes. Send it to me. Excuse me, sorry. She sent me an email with no less than 24 questions.
Wow.
And looking at her questions, I said, well, these are good ones to answer. Okay, she's got good points. Like, there's a boyfriend in here mentioned. Well, is he just, the perfect boy? Is he really that perfect? Well, that's a good question. I read even in a love story, you need to have conflict. They can't just be lovey-dovey all the time.
Right.
They have to fight. So that made sense. She also said, the stuff happens in. She said, house is a character. Yes, it's a character.
House,
she wrote
just for our people, our listeners, House is another one of your books.
Well, no, Houses is the first chapter in Lucy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And all this business takes place primarily in this one house. And for whatever reason, the woman's name is Robin. Robin said, well, House is a character. I need to know more about the house. Like, well, that makes sense. And then more questions about, the mother and the father and other things that went on. And I'm like, oh my word, I said, you want to write like a novella? I was like, yeah. So we started pulling it apart, Lucy and I. We pulled it apart. And as we pulled it apart to make different sections and stuck in Robin's questions that were apropos for each section,
Mm-hmm.
it made a lot of sense. All of a sudden, we had a 4,000 word first chapter that's houses, and then doors. The next chapter is apropos, because that goes to a lack of boundaries. Like the mom would just, open. You couldn't have your door shut, or she would just open your door and barge in. That goes into boundaries, and there was a lot of talk about that, and there's a bunch. So it's like one piece at a time, but it's also very cathartic, both for me and for Lucy. We end up crying a lot, and it got to be honest, we haven't done too much more. We've taken a break because it got to be a lot. And I always talk to my friends, Donna Gould,
sure,
and Robin, and they're like, no, take a break. Nobody says you have to crank this out.
Let me ask you this. You don't have to answer me. Is that woman that's helping you write that, is she the Lucy? Like you are one and she's...
Yeah,
you're both part of the same person?
Lucy is a longtime friend from long ago, who we never were friends when we were kids. She's a high school friend. And I reconnected, and because I didn't talk about, in these situations, it's very much alcoholic. Don't ask, don't tell anybody.
Got it.
So I didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell anybody. We reconnected as adults with, my dad is gone, and my mother is gone, and one of her parents is gone, and it just doesn't matter anymore. And she said, well, how can we, because I have people who are, none of the people who will care about this are still alive. My siblings are, but they would never read anything. They don't read this kind of stuff. She has friends and family who are alive who would recognize too much of her. So I said, well, why don't we stick the two of us together? She said, this is great, because a lot of things that happened to me happened to her just a little different way. So we're kind of going back and forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure it does. Well, I guess this is my next question for you is, what's the best writing advice or what's the best writing advice and or encouragement you've ever gotten? Would it be from this woman?
In order of people, the first was my analyst, because I wrote a bunch of stuff and I gave it to him, and he's like, he said, your writing is borderline brilliant. And I joked back, you mean borderline brilliant or just borderline? As in borderline personality disorder. Okay. But he was my biggest fan to start with. But I thought, well, you love me. You're just saying this. But then my husband died, and I met Donna Gould. She was Gould at the time, so it's easier to say that. She wasn't married to Al yet. And I went to Donna's critique group, and the group really didn't understand my writing. I got a lot of, what is this? And we don't understand it. We don't understand your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay. But Donna Kindle set the original version of Ashes, which is up there now. It's the Haggadah, which is a Passover Seder order of service.
Okay.
And so she encouraged me to put that in the competition, which took me by surprise. But I understood how to take covert hints by now. She never said it straight out. She hinted sideways. That was huge. And then I braved a little bit more at Donna's group. And then one day, I don't remember if I read something, but we had a kid, young man, passing through, and he read his piece, and he got weird feedback. And Donna's future husband, Al, after everything was all done, came over, and he said, you two, he said, the rules don't apply. You're literary. These other people are commercial.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my God, yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so from then I just decided, okay, I'm just going to be me.
And yet,
And
literary is usually associated with fiction. And I would say commercial is more
well,
with nonfiction, or maybe
yes,
doesn't work that easily.
yeah, well, okay. A good literary example of fiction is Jose Saramago's Blindness.
Hmm.
He wrote a Nobel. It's kind of high. It's fiction, but it's high level. But
Okay.
fiction also covers nonfiction. Irma Bombeck is nonfiction,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
She tells her stories, but she's true life humor. My first semester nonfiction professor, we studied Annie Dillard's Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. That was Annie's first work, and it won her a Pulitzer. And it's little essays. She stayed at this place, Tinker Creek. It's a real place. And she spent a summer or whatever it was, and she wrote pieces about what she saw in nature. Some of her things are kind of, they call it stream of consciousness, maybe. And so what makes it literary, Lucy is actually more commercial. It's more common. It's your average person will pick it up and get it right away. Things like my Freudian stuff is kind of off the wall. It's kind of some feedback I got was it's narcissistic.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
well, it is, but it's not, because my goal with that was I would love to be chicken soup for the psychoanalyst soul.
I want to tell you something. I just got a note from the producer that she got lost listening to you because you're so interesting that we actually are almost out of time. So I'm going to have to end this, and I'm going to have you back, if you don't mind,
you.
next month for our next recording. And so we'll do part 2, Kate Levison. Okay. So I'm sorry, I have to shut it off right now. And we're going to talk about Rodney the Rat and critiques and all the other characters you have, the hot twisted dude and everything else. So I'm going to go right to the end, and we'll have you back next time. Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, Kate.
We can talk about making it more accessible and easy to listen to.
All right. Well, listen to me. Kathryn Levison, we only have 15 seconds left. This interview will air in the upcoming weeks. Kathryn Levison is a great indie writer and a wonderful freelance editor. You remember that, okay? Her website is Dancing with My Analyst, KathrynLevison.com. That's LEVISON.com. And you can find her on Facebook, Kathryn Levison. She is also the co-director of Facebook's Culture Coast Writers. You can find her work on Amazon's Kindle. I'd like to thank Kathryn Levison for being on our show today. My name is Richard Bont, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, an eclectic show on Society Bites Radio. You can download these podcasts on societybitesradio.com. That's Society Bites with BYTES. .com, radio.net, that's RADDIO.net, or richardbont.com. And you can also listen to us on iHeart and AHA Radio, iTunes, Spotify, Sound Echo, and several other internet platforms. Thank you, Kathryn Levison.
Thank you very much.
So I'd like to thank our guests for being on Curmudgeonly Yours today. And please, if you like what you heard, send me an email to richard@richardbont.com. And if you didn't, please keep your comments to yourself. Remember, this is Richard Bont and Curmudgeonly Yours on Society Bites Radio, where everything is what it seems, nothing is what it seems, and what is not said is often of most interest.